Before you click away, let me tell you something that might sting a little. You've probably been completely blind to your own appeal for years, maybe decades. And the worst part is, it's not even your fault. Nobody sat you down and explained how desire actually works in the real world. They just left you guessing, second guessing, and eventually convinced that you weren't measuring up. What I'm about to share with you might fundamentally change how you see yourself. Not through empty affirmations or feel-good nonsense, but through real understanding of what actually draws people toward you without you even realizing it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were standing in a crowded space completely unnoticed? Have you ever driven home after a social gathering, replaying every interaction, trying to decode whether someone actually enjoyed your company or was just being polite? Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, well, this is as good as it gets, and resigned yourself to being perpetually overlooked? If any of that resonates, I need you to stay right here because what I'm about to explain could rewrite your entire understanding of how people perceive you. And here's the strange truth that nobody talks about. The people who doubt their appeal most intensely are often the exact ones others find genuinely compelling. Not the loudest person in the room, not the flashiest, but the person who possesses something quieter and far more powerful: authentic self-possession. We're going to break down exactly what that means and how it shows up in ways you've been trained to ignore. Let's start with something fundamental. The way you experience interest and the way others experience interest in you operates on completely different wavelengths. When you find someone appealing, it tends to hit you directly. You notice them, you think about approaching, you consider what to say. It's straightforward, linear, simple cause and effect. But for most people, especially women, interest doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It emerges gradually. It shows up in patterns of behavior, in repeated small choices, in the way someone manages their physical space around you. She's not going to walk up and declare her fascination. Instead, she'll create circumstances where connection becomes possible. She'll position herself, she'll offer openings, and if you're waiting for something unmistakable and obvious, you'll miss every single one of those invitations. The game was never designed to be straightforward. It's designed to be layered, nuanced, and deeply human. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through specific patterns that signal genuine interest and personal magnetism. And I want you to approach this honestly. Not from a place of ego and not from a place of self-criticism, just pure observation. Because somewhere around the halfway point, something tends to click for people watching this. A recognition sets in, so pay attention to that moment if it arrives for you. Let's begin. The first thing to understand is sustained eye contact. This happens constantly and gets dismissed constantly. You're in an everyday setting, a bookstore, a community center, waiting in line somewhere. You glance up and your eyes meet someone else's, but instead of that instant awkward look away that usually happens between strangers, the gaze holds just one beat longer than normal. Then it breaks. Most people write that off as meaningless, but that extra second carries enormous weight. Psychological research shows that prolonged eye contact triggers emotional responses. It creates a sense of connection and perceived intimacy even between people who've never spoken. Your nervous system doesn't invest that energy randomly. You don't lock eyes with things that don't register to you. And here's the crucial detail most people completely miss. The second glance, after the initial eye contact breaks, she looks back. Maybe just a quick flick of the eyes in your direction. That's not accident, that's verification. She's confirming what she felt the first time. Think about your own patterns. When something truly doesn't interest you, you barely register it. When something does, you look twice. You check again. She's doing exactly the same thing. That first moment is curiosity. The second is intention. She's quietly wondering whether you noticed her noticing you. And real confidence in that moment doesn't mean staring intensely or trying to dominate with your gaze. It means relaxed steadiness, a soft hold, maybe a subtle smile, natural acknowledgement. If this has happened to you recently, you weren't invisible. You were seen. And we're just getting started. The second pattern is proximity. Attractive people create what almost feels like a gravitational effect. You might notice someone choosing to stand near you when other spaces are available, joining a conversation circle you're already part of, sitting in the chair beside you at an event when multiple seats are open. This isn't random chance, this is deliberate positioning. People rarely pursue directly, but they absolutely create opportunities for interaction to happen naturally. There's solid psychological grounding here. Proximity increases familiarity. There's an entire body of research on what's called the mere exposure effect. Basically, being physically near someone repeatedly creates positive associations. By placing herself in your immediate environment, she's raising the probability that you'll interact. She's making herself part of your immediate awareness. I knew someone, a guy in his early 60s, who felt completely invisible socially. He went to the same cafe every week. And every week, the same woman ended up at the table next to his. 3 times, 4 times, he assumed coincidence. But once he shifted his perspective from self-doubt to simple observation, he started engaging differently. Just small talk, genuine questions, relaxed presence, the entire dynamic changed. Energy attracts, awareness responds. Here's the third sign, and it's one people overlook completely. Notice whether conversations pause when you start speaking. Do people turn their bodies toward you? Do side discussions quiet down slightly when you contribute? That's presence. And presence is one of the most underrated aspects of human appeal. Psychologists refer to something called the halo effect. When someone is perceived as having high social value, we unconsciously grant them more attention, more credibility, more approval. And this becomes especially powerful as you age. Youth commands attention through energy and novelty. Maturity commands it through substance and calm. You don't need to dominate every room you enter. You need to be anchored within it. Try this small adjustment. Slow your speaking pace slightly. Lower your voice just a touch. Pause before responding instead of rushing to fill silence. Silence magnifies presence. It draws focus. If you've ever experienced that quiet authority where attention gathers without you demanding it, you're already operating with magnetism. You just haven't owned it yet. Now let's talk about mirroring. This is subtle but incredibly revealing. Mirroring happens when someone unconsciously matches your body language. You cross your arms, and a moment later, she does the same. You lean forward, she leans forward. You adjust your posture, and shortly after, hers shift similarly. This isn't mockery. This is nervous system synchronization. When people feel safe and connected to someone, their bodies begin matching rhythms automatically. There are actual neurons in the brain, mirror neurons, that fire when we observe someone we feel rapport with. It's biological alignment. If you notice someone reflecting your gestures or matching your pace of speech, her nervous system is communicating safety. And safety is the foundation of attraction, especially for women. Desire doesn't flourish in environments that feel uncertain or uncomfortable. It flourishes where someone feels genuinely at ease. Here's a small experiment. Subtly mirror one element of her posture after a few moments of conversation. Not exaggerated, just gentle alignment. Watch how quickly the sense of connection deepens. Attraction is rarely explosive, it's layered, it's energetic, it builds through accumulated moments of resonance. We're moving into deeper territory now. The fifth sign surprises people because it sounds like a simple compliment, but it represents something far more significant. When someone comments on your appearance, that's surface level. Physical assessments happen fast, within seconds of meeting someone. But when someone says something like, "There's something calming about you," or "I feel like I can actually talk to you," or "You have a really grounded energy," that's a completely different level of feedback. She's responding to your presence, not your packaging. Research consistently shows that emotional safety and authenticity predict long-term attraction far better than physical features. When someone tells you they feel comfortable in your presence, they're saying their nervous system relaxes around you. That is magnetic on a level most people never understand because it can't be faked or manufactured. I once knew a man in his late 50s, a widower, not particularly outgoing, not flashy, not the center of attention, but women kept telling him he was easy to talk to. He thought they were just being nice. They weren't. He had this quality of listening without performing. He didn't rush to fill silences or prove anything. His calm created emotional safety, something incredibly rare. He thought he was ordinary. They experienced him as anchoring. There's a world of difference between those two perceptions. Next time someone compliments your energy, your presence, your vibe, don't deflect it. Don't minimize it. Just say thank you and mean it. Confidence grows when you stop rejecting positive evidence about yourself. The sixth sign is catching people looking at you, not once, but repeatedly. Quick assessments. Glances from across a room that happen more than coincidence would explain. Here's what's actually occurring. Human beings are hardwired to scan environments for social value. We instinctively notice people who stand out. Not necessarily through appearance, but through composure, energy, the way they carry themselves. When you enter a space and conversation shifts slightly, when someone glances and immediately looks away, when eye contact happens across distance more than once, that's recognition. That's tracking behavior. Most people miss this completely because they're waiting for something overt, but genuine interest rarely arrives with spotlights and announcements. It shows up in patterns of attention. Here's something practical. Next time you enter any public space, instead of immediately looking at your phone or the ground, walk in with shoulders back, chin level, moving deliberately but not hurriedly. Let your gaze move calmly across the room. Just observe. You might be genuinely surprised how often awareness meets awareness. Now we're entering territory that operates beneath the surface. The seventh sign doesn't involve her at all, and yet it's one of the most powerful indicators of attractiveness that exists. It's how other men respond to you. This is critical because women observe male social dynamics extremely closely. Men are biologically wired to assess status and hierarchy. It's ancient programming. And the way other men treat you sends signals that no amount of looks or charm can replicate. Respect from other men looks like this. They don't interrupt you, they ask your opinion. They introduce you positively, they defer in small but noticeable ways. Competition looks different. Sudden attempts to one-up you when a woman enters the conversation. Backhanded comments disguised as jokes. Efforts to dominate or dismiss. Both reactions, respect and competition, signal value. Respect says you're recognized as legitimate. Competition says you're perceived as a threat. From an evolutionary psychology standpoint, women are acutely tuned to social proof. When other men treat you as high value, that assessment registers immediately and unconsciously with women nearby. And here's the key. The most attractive men don't fight for status. They embody it quietly. Real confidence doesn't need to escalate or prove itself. It stabilizes situations. When you're in a group setting, do you get louder to assert yourself, or do you remain grounded? If men respond to you with either respect or competition, you're a factor. And women are absolutely paying attention. We're approaching the final sign, and it's the one that shifts everything about how you perceive yourself. But before we get there, if this is landing for you, take a second and really absorb what's being said here. These aren't tricks or tactics. This is about recognizing what's already happening around you. The eighth and final sign is when women assume you already have options. You might hear comments like, "I'm sure you're not single," or "You probably have people interested in you all the time," or "I bet you get approached a lot." These statements come up early, often before any real commitment or exclusivity is even discussed. Why? Because you're radiating non-desperate energy. Desperation has a recognizable signature. It shows up as over-explaining, seeking constant reassurance, rushing intimacy, or clinging to interactions. Abundance energy is completely different. It's calm, it's patient, it doesn't chase validation or force connection. Women are highly attuned to scarcity versus abundance, not logically, but instinctively. If she senses you're comfortable whether she chooses you or not, she perceives you as higher value. And here's the paradox. You might not actually have dozens of options, but if you carry yourself like someone who's selective and self-assured, people assume you do. Perception shapes reality. When women believe you're desired, they become more intrigued, more invested, more drawn in. So let me ask you directly. Do you move through the world like someone grateful for scraps of attention, or like someone who chooses intentionally and carefully? That question alone can transform your entire relational dynamic. Now pause for a moment. If you recognized even 2 or 3 of those signs in your own life, you are very likely far more appealing than you've allowed yourself to believe. The issue is almost never your actual attractiveness. The issue is ownership. The issue is internal narrative. And here's what I want you to understand, because this is where real change happens. Your brain actively filters out evidence that contradicts your self-image. If you believe you're unattractive, you will literally not see the signs proving otherwise. This is called confirmation bias, and it runs your life until you become aware of it. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Robert. 62 years old, divorced for nearly a decade, fully convinced that his dating life was over. He described himself as invisible, background filler. But when we actually examined his day-to-day experiences, a completely different reality emerged. Women at his gym consistently chose machines near him. A woman at his local coffee shop remembered his order and smiled every time he walked in. At neighborhood gatherings, women engaged him in conversation easily, laughed at his observations, asked follow-up questions. He dismissed all of it because none of it was explicit pursuit. He was waiting for someone to make it unmistakably obvious. What he didn't see was that his calm demeanor, his thoughtful responses, his steady eye contact, all of it was quietly magnetic. But because his internal story said he wasn't attractive, he filtered out every piece of external evidence suggesting he was. His brain only saw information that confirmed his existing belief. That's how powerful your internal narrative is. It doesn't just shape how you feel. It shapes what you literally perceive as real. So the work now isn't about changing your appearance. It's not about your age or learning scripts or techniques. The work is internal identity update. And here's the most liberating truth I can offer you. Your identity is not fixed. It can be updated, not through arrogance, but through awareness. Let me show you how. First, start an evidence journal. At the end of each day this week, write down one moment of positive social feedback. A smile, a sustained glance, someone leaning in while you spoke, a warm exchange with a stranger. Don't analyze it, don't minimize it, just record it. Over time, your brain starts building counter-evidence to old narratives. New neural pathways form. Your identity begins shifting. Second, regulate your nervous system before social situations. Before entering any environment where you'll interact with people, take 3 deep breaths. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale slowly for 6. Relax your jaw. Drop your shoulders. This simple practice shifts your nervous system out of threat mode into connection mode. When your body is calm, your presence changes. People feel it before you even speak. Third, reclaim past evidence. Think back to 3 moments in your life where someone clearly showed interest in you, even if nothing came of it. Write them down. Now ask yourself, what qualities was I embodying in those moments? Were you relaxed, focused on something other than impressing them, not trying too hard? Attraction shows up strongest when you're simply being yourself without constant self-monitoring. That version of you, the unguarded one, that's who people respond to. Now let me bring this full circle. Recognizing attraction is one level of awareness. Embodying attractiveness is something entirely different. And there's one final shift that changes your entire relational dynamic permanently. When you stop questioning whether you're attractive, you start asking a completely different question. Instead of, I hope she likes me, you begin thinking, does this person actually align with what I want? That shift alone rebalances everything. When you evaluate calmly instead of seeking approval, your energy stabilizes. There's less grasping, less urgency, and that grounded curiosity invites openness from others. Selectivity is attractive. Having standards is attractive. Desperation dissolves the moment standards rise. Picture this. You walk into a room, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady, not scanning desperately, just present. You greet someone warmly. You engage in one meaningful conversation. You laugh naturally. You excuse yourself when the conversation runs its course instead of clinging. Across the room, someone notices. She feels the ease. She senses the lack of neediness. She observes how others respond to you. She sees you're not chasing, and slowly, naturally, she positions herself closer. This is how genuine attraction unfolds. Not with fireworks, not with grand romantic gestures, quietly, gradually, powerfully. And you'll miss it entirely if you're still searching only for the obvious. Before we finish, I want you to ask yourself one question. If you truly believed you were attractive, not just physically, but energetically, how would you behave differently tomorrow? Would you approach conversations more calmly? Would you hold eye contact just a moment longer? Would you stop overthinking every single interaction? That shift begins right now. Attraction isn't something you chase or beg for. It's something you embody. And once you genuinely recognize that, you stop wondering where you stand. You stand firmly, and the right people feel it. If this conversation shifted something in you, I'd genuinely like to know. Leave a comment below and tell me which sign resonated hardest. Was it the eye contact, the proximity, the way people quiet down when you speak, or the assumption that you already have options? Your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.